My parents were in the area of St. Therese Parish in an apartment about the time that I was born. They lived with my grandmother for a couple of years, I think. I'm not absolutely sure of that. The first house we lived in that I know is my memory and not my imagination was on Concord Drive, which is just one street up from Crittenden, I think, but it's in that vicinity. Near that old restaurant, our street was Concord. And it was one of those one bedroom with a sleeping porch. They call it built on the back of the house. Closed in so that you can sit out there in the winter if you want to, but there was only one real bedroom. So by the time my brother, who was born the October before I turned 4 in December, when it got to the point where he was out of the baby bed, it was too crowded for 3 children in that space. So as soon as David was out of the baby bed, Mother said to Daddy, we need to move to a bigger room, bigger house. So they bought a property. That was our Mother of Sorrows parish. They moved. He found property he liked at a good price, a good, satisfactory, in St. Matthews, Bonner Avenue, when that first was getting developed. Hubbard's Lane was, coming from this area to get there. Hubbard's Lane comes first and it was paved. Bonner Avenue was next, it had gravel. And I don't know how many, there was a farm, small farm behind us that we could get there, run there as kids if we wanted to. And I know that they were raising turnips because the boys liked to pick them. And I think there was something else, but I wouldn't swear to what it was. So I started first grade. It was then a Holy Trinity Parish, Ursuline Sisters. Bonner Avenue was far enough away that, and we only had one car. Dad used it to drive to work every day. Mother wasn't driving that time at all. And we rode the school bus. My brother was in kindergarten right behind me. And I remember riding on that bus with 8th grade girls around, having all kinds of God only knows colors on their fingernails. And I was just glad to get off the bus when we were finished. I was not comfortable with those big girls sitting right behind me. Second World War. My dad kept getting slips about turning whatever you have to do, preparation, examination, whatever, and he kept getting excused because he was working for the Courier-Journal and newspapers were exempted for the good of the publicity that they could spread in favor of and to keep people's morale up. Here we are, first grade, second grade. I remember the sisters I had, Sister Laura in first grade, Sister Conrad in second grade, Sister Martha in third grade, and in March of that year, my grandmother was left alone in her house. Now, she and my granddad were deaf. They met each other at Gallaudet College or University for the Deaf. He was raised in Cincinnati. She was raised in Louisville. They both became deaf from scarlet fever, but it was not the same year for the disease. She was going into school when she got it, and she spent 12 years at the School for the Deaf in Danville. Graduated, prepared to go on to Gallaudet. She wanted to become a teacher. My grandfather, who died when I was a year and 5 or 6 months, I only know anything about him because there are a couple of pictures of the two of us in the backyard of his house. And he was Lutheran and studying to become a Lutheran minister. Now, when Grandma's mama found out that her daughter was even interested in a somebody who wasn't Catholic, Grandma, the great-grandmother whom I never knew, was very strict about religion. And she said, she wrote a letter to my aunt, my grandmother, her daughter, "Come home now." Well, instead, she and John ran off to get married. I think they were married in Carrollton. I don't know that but that's what sticks in my head. And she was scared to death to go home to her mother, so when I guess they both left college, the two of them went to his people in Cincinnati. Grandpa died when he died in March or April of '37, and Grandma by that time, her second son, my Uncle Norbert, was no longer at home, and Aunt Doris was engaged to a man not married yet. And after the wedding, they were planning, he was drafted, but he was doing, and I don't know what you call it, but it's like the man in charge of the goods in the place where the young soldiers came and got whatever, uniform or cigarettes or whatever. So Aunt Doris was going to be leaving. Grandma would be in the house with her dog, but a woman who can't hear, and that's so forth. So Dad, I guess Dad and Mother decided the best thing to do was to sell the house in St. Matthews and move in with Grandma, so there'd be somebody there. She had plenty of room to help. So that's what we did, and that was March of my third grade when we were at St. Elizabeth. We were going to have confirmation for second and third grade children that year, and so John was going to make First Communion at Holy Trinity. I was going to be confirmed at Holy Trinity, but we got moved, so that happened at St. Elizabeth. Here's the third house we've lived in, that I've lived in, and Ursuline sisters all the way up. I had Sister Martha at St. Matthew's, and I had Sister Marian at St. Elizabeth. She was my salvation that year for all that goes on when children are moved from one school to another. And we lived there, Aunt Doris and Uncle Harry went around the country until he was sent overseas. She was pregnant. She came back to Grandma's house, our house, and lived there until the war was over, and she and Uncle Harry found a place of their own. For confirmation, I was going to wear my First Communion dress, but couldn't wear a First Communion veil. Aunt Doris crocheted a little white hat that had a little upturning thing, and it was all starched so it would stay put. And my brother was wearing, I think they had a white suit. I don't know, my guess is they rented it, but I think he was in a white suit. And let's see, that was third grade. Fourth grade, I had Sister Robert. She had freckles on her arms. I don't know if you know what our original habit had. A big bell sleeve that only went so far, and then there was a smaller one that was almost a veil, maybe like the mourning veil from wrist to elbow. And I remember standing by her desk to do something or other. She was taking names or something, and she didn't have her short sleeves on, and I saw freckles. And it's the first time I ever saw freckles on any adult, but that it should be a sister who was teaching me. When the war ended, Aunt Doris and Uncle Harry found themselves a house. Her baby was born before Uncle Harry got home. He was born on VE Day, and Aunt Doris teased for a long time about calling him Victor Emmanuel, but he really got named after his daddy. But instead of Harry, he was called Hank, and still is. Yeah, by that time, By that time, the house was ours. And 6th grade, Sister Marita, who was the first one of my Ursuline sisters who, well, I guess it was being as old as I was by that time. My good friend, whose name was Antoinette, but we called her Tony, she and I stayed after school to clean erasers and do all that and ask Sister Marita all kinds of questions. And I heard a whole lot about the stuff that happens before you're wearing a veil, if you're interested in convent. And I could imagine myself doing that. But at that age, it was curiosity, and I just loved her to death. Mother got pregnant with my little sister, and she was born in December, so am I. My birthday's the 8th, hers was the 20th. So I was 11, I think, when she was born. And that house on Lydia Street had one bathroom, and it was on the upstairs floor. And Mother said to Dad that before the end of that pregnancy, she was going to have to be running up and down, and that was too much, too much. So in his mind right away, we'll move somewhere else. He could have put a toilet in the basement. He could have put one on the first floor, because there were 2 spaces that were kind of bonus spaces. Either one could have been adapted, but it wasn't what they decided. And we moved to a house on Manning Road, which was 1 street to Louisville from Preston, which was the end of Jefferson County at that time. Jefferson County expanded since. There was a farm behind us that I don't know who bought it, but the fairgrounds is on that property now. The airport was not terribly far away, but it was really away from town, away from a lot of places. It was country, I guess, on one side of the road, not on the other. On the other side of the road was Audubon Park, behind at least one, ours Audubon Park neighborhood, and the golf course was over there. My 2 brothers, when they were old enough, used to go over there. They were caddies, and that was a good way to make a little bit of money for little kids. Well, they weren't little kids, but for younger than high school. And the house was very similar to the house on Bonner Avenue that Mother and Dad built themselves. But what was different on the side of the house that was away from the driveway, the bedroom, the bathroom, and the bedroom was the situation in St. Matthews. It was bedroom, bedroom, bathroom on Lydia Street. But other than that, it was exactly the same basic setting for the house. So here I am with my 4th school taught by Ursuline sisters. When we first moved into that house, or when Dad was asking questions about the neighbors and stuff as we were moving in, he asked where was the nearest Catholic church, and he happened to ask people who weren't Catholics. But one of them said he thought there was one over there in, I think, called Belmont. I'm not sure of that. And so Dad went over, sure enough, it was Holy Family. And he got us registered, and the first day of school, a Sister of Charity, who was really young, we might have been her first class, I don't know, came in, and I was sitting wherever they told me. I don't remember how I got that seat, but I was sitting in the desk, and she said something about heading your paper. Now, I knew she wasn't an Ursuline, and the girl in front of me knew that I hadn't been there before. She turned around to tell me what the thing was for the Sisters of Charity. And Sister said, "Stop talking over there." I didn't like it from that moment on. There was no bus service there. We did not have 2 cars. I'm not sure that Mother was even driving yet. And, although she almost had to be. But he asked around a little further and found out that if we went up Manning Road to Preston and stood at the bus, we could get one that would take us to town and get us off at Eastern Parkway and walk down to our Mother of Sorrows. And so that's how we changed schools. And guess who taught at our Mother of Sorrows? Ursulines. Had Sister Huberta and Sister Tekla. Tekla was the principal. Sister Huberta was teaching a double grade, 7th and 8th. And I just loved her too. So, and that by that time they were doing, I don't know what they called them anything now, but it was like, if you're really interested in what life is like for the sisters, etc., back up. I learned how to knit from Sister Valeria, who was my teacher in this fifth grade at St. Elizabeth. I learned to embroider from my grandmother. I learned to, that's with threads. And I learned to crochet from another friend of my grandmother's. So I was busy with all these. They were all good hobbies. And the summer that Mother was pregnant with Angela, she said something to me about, no, it was the year before. She said something to me about learning how to cook. I wasn't the least bit interested. This would be the summer between 7th and 8th grade. But she had a baby, and I got to babysit, which was a whole lot more fun than learning how to cook. That I didn't learn until at one point in community when we didn't have cooks anymore. And it was imperative that we learn how and so forth. And I don't mind it now, but I'm not cooking now either. Sister Tekla at the, I don't know, she said, I can't remember if this information was to me personally or if there was a group of girls and she was telling all of us. But she suggested that we take the entrance tests for any of the high schools that we would be interested in because you just never know how that might go. So I took the one at Sacred Heart, and which I never would have been able to do that. I'm sure my dad couldn't afford it. We talked about the possibility when I told them about taking the test, and he said, people will be talking about their dad who's a lawyer or what's another, doctor, and you would say my dad works for the Courier Journal and the printers. He said they wouldn't want that. They wouldn't want you to be there. Well, I don't know if they would have or not, but anyway, I didn't end up there. Took the test for Ursuline Academy. Let's see, we were on Manning Road, and it would have been, in fact it was, easy to take the bus and get off at Shelby and at Preston and get the bus over to Shelby, or even walk it so close to the street, to Broadway. And I got a scholarship for Ursuline, so that freshman year, so that took care of. There was no question after that. I had, to get back to the 8th grade, we were doing knitting for the Red Cross. They made washcloths, mittens, and something else. There were 3 different things that you could do. Red Cross supplied the yarn for the care boxes that went overseas. And so the washcloth was a really easy thing to do. So that's what I did. And on the side, I made for myself a purse with still wearing hats to church, and a hat, a really simple little thing like that, and enjoying knitting very much. I can't remember if I knitted anything for Angela or not, but I was her built-in babysitter. And I remember having her on my lap and reading the nursery rhymes and various, and I remember reading the page and then saying, what's this or what's this color and all that kind of stuff, to just make it more fun for her, I guess, to listen to it. But she went to first grade, first time, the same day I entered the community, September the 8th, 1953. And Dominican sisters, we were in our Mother of Sorrows parish when we first discovered that it was there. But during that time, and I think it was around the time I was a sophomore, St. Stephen Martyr was built alongside Audubon Park homes because the population was growing there. And we were automatically taken into it because of where our address was. And there was the Girls' Society, can't remember now what they called it, something Blessed Mother. Anyway, I joined that, and I wanted to join the choir, but Mother said, they rehearse on school nights. No, I couldn't join the choir. All freshmen had to take a singing music class once a week, and then there was an additional one for girls who really wanted to sing, and that might have been after school, but after school was never a problem for me because it was just cross the street, get on the bus, you're home. And there was a house 2 doors away from us at home, had younger children. But anyway, the little girl was just starting school, our Mother of Sorrows, and she was riding to school with her dad, who's on his way downtown to work every day, and I was babysitting her, and she and the wife invited me, well, her husband, and she told my mother they'd be glad to take me down in the morning. So that's how I got to school. Very easy. And then, so there was somebody else to play with besides my little sister. There was another girl on our street up just one step down from Preston Highway, and she was closer to my age, and she had a little sister too. So sometimes during summer vacation, Angela and I would go up and play with, can't remember her name, Joyce or Joanne, I'm not sure, and her little sister. So it was good for both of us for that. I liked high school. I made some good friends, and some of the new other girls that I knew from our Mother of Sorrows were also in the same freshman class. So, and that was, as I said, I liked that. I think I got onto the school paper. By the time of senior year, I was, whatever they call it, I don't know if it was editor in charge or whatever, but I was the chief. When I was a sophomore, it was February. We'd had snow, but it was largely melted. On Gray Street, St. Martin of Tours, passed every day coming and going, and this particular afternoon I walked into the church just to make a visit after, because I had several minutes before I had to look for the bus, and that was a real experience. The sun was shining, the church had colored glass windows, and when I walked in, it was as though all these lights were crisscrossing. It was just beautiful, and a voice said to me, "If you want a happy life, you will be a sister." And I said, if I want a happy life, I'll be an Ursuline sister. So that was in the back of my head then for the rest of my high school career. When I was, I think, a senior, I don't think we had a vocation club for juniors, but I really don't remember. But in senior year we did, and I was involved in that. Sister Walter sort of adopted me, and during Christmas, right after Christmas, early January was final exams for the first semester, and Sister Walter said to me, this is a good time for you to go out to talk to the Mother Superior, which was part of the whole arrangement. I had said to my parents, I don't know if it was Christmas, I think it was earlier than that I was really interested in being a sister, and I knew about the Associates program, not the Associates of this one, but the earlier ones. I said something to Mother, and she said, by no means. She said, you stay here until you finish school, and then if you want to go someplace else, go. Now, my brother, who's just a year behind me, said the same thing about priesthood, and they let him go. But he wanted to come home at Christmas, and they said to him, finish out the year. Your grade, what they meant was your report card would be good enough to get you in one of the higher, I don't know how they rank things, at St. X at that time. And so when he came back, he was a sophomore at St. X in one of the upper grade levels. So we were going to tell the family at Christmas. So Grandma comes for Christmas dinner, and this subject is raised, and she said, no, let her get married. I want grandchildren. Angela can go to the convent. Here's Angela, not even in school yet. Grandma didn't get her way. And that grandma was Dad's grandma. Mother came from St. Meinrad, raised there. And when she was finished with grade school, she did 2 years of high school, the kind of things secretaries do. So, because she was expecting to go to an office somewhere and have a salary that she could send some back. She was the second of 6, and there were 3 sisters under her and a brother. So she was going to do what she could to help her family, because that's what her older sister had already started to do. So, and September the 8th, I think, this is one of the Blessed Mother feast days, was the starting day, and it was a week before the college would start, so that the young women who were ready for college would get there, start there. And we had 5 in my class in the congregation who were still in high school. They were the aspirants, and 5 of them, and they went to Sacred Heart to finish up their high school. And those of us who had college went to Ursuline College. And the very first day, well, entrance day, September the 8th, Mother and I, the family had given a party the night before, Sunday night, and ended up with some money, and there were some items that we still didn't purchase from the list of things you should come with. So she took Angela to school at St. Stephen's, and then she and I went downtown because the little places around didn't exist there. When one of the early visits, family visited once a month, and it was the second week of the month for the lowest on the ladder. And so it must have been the very first time they came. Mother had this story about Angela. They had finished the first chapter in the reader, and Sister allowed them to take the book home to read it to their parents. And when she went back to school the next day, Angela had read the whole book. And Sister didn't like that at all. What was she going to do with this kid when she was doing lessons with everybody else? I have no idea how that went. I should ask her sometime. There was a section, you know, the building, what is now the social room was the postulants' room, and we had, I think, 4 or maybe 5 tables to make us a boxy thing, and our mistress was there. So, and we had classes with her on religious life and how to be a candidate or a postulant. And then as it got closer to investments, when we would get the veil and the name change, that's where all that happened. And then we slept up. There was, above us was the novices section, and then the next row was the beds, and that's where we slept. And then up on top of there was the attic. As a group, we walked every evening for exercise. And I'm sure there was some system to it, but I really don't remember. And how it rotated. Nobody walked by herself. And sometimes we'd stop at that statue, it isn't there anymore, of the Blessed Mother. We always stopped there. Sometimes we said the Hail Mary. Sometimes it was one of the other Blessed Mother prayers, and occasionally it would be a song. And then when we finished walking, we came back and sat in a circle. Usually Mother Superior started the conversation, and maybe anything happened at school today, or do you want to tell us what's going on with, I can't remember how. And the novitiate was very similar as far as that part's concerned. And we took turns walking with the mistress, and we almost always ended up with a song. At Christmas time, 2 or 3, I'm not sure, new people came to join us for the second semester. They skipped the aspirants and began with the postulancy and the preparation for investiture. And we had some very good singers. It was customary for the novices to do something at Christmas to entertain, and not for a long time necessarily, at the whatever congregational celebration, I assume. We did, now this we did in the postulancy, because I was selected as Elizabeth. I can't remember who was Mary. I remember we learned these hymns and we went knocking from door to door and being shut out and so forth. We did some similar stuff as novices too, but I don't remember. That my duty was learning, educational, for the first year. Then the second year was no college at all until summer school. And during that, when we concentrated on the spiritual life, the life of as a nun, and whatever all that other stuff that went in with it for the second year. And then school ended in probably the tail end of May, and on the 2nd of June, we had the ceremony. And then the first year of novitiate was studying religious life and prayer and all the things that go with it, and probably the particulars for Ursulines. And then in the next year, we took some college courses, but not full schedule. And I don't remember what all was included in that. The main job was to learn about vowed life. After novitiate followed a 3-year period of like testing it out with the vows, and that year half of us in our class went out to college, to teach rather, in schools, and half of us were to go to Ursuline College, and I was in one of them in that group, and get another year of college under your belt. Everybody who could, who did have a first year, was expected to go into the classroom the second year and then finish on Saturdays. Because I had had 3 years of Latin in college, in high school, they wanted me to do Latin, the 2 semesters, The girls who hadn't done Latin had Latin and English. They got 3 credits. I only got 2 credits for that, which seemed to me very, very out of balance. That's the way it was. It was 2 classes a week, so 2 classes a week. So it was two credits for it. And that turned out to be a little problematic later. So schools grade schools started the week of Labor Day, I'm assuming. The college started the week after that. One of the sisters, who I lived with later, and I can't remember her name now, older sister, had surgery or something medical. The doctor didn't want her to go back the week after, but the week after that, go to school. So I was selected to be the teacher of the 1st grade at St. Raphael's School that year. Now, I knew this much about teaching. I did not know that this was going to happen until the Sunday day before it was going to be. And Sister Tekla went with me over to St. Raphael Parish so that I could sleep there and be on time the next day. And I said, she kept saying, "You're going to be fine, everything will work out right." So here we are. She said, I'll be with you. So she went into the classroom with me the first morning, the first day, and I don't remember what she did, something about the alphabet. And then she left, and I was on my own. Bell rings for recess. We go out to the yard, and the kids play. Bell rings for the end of recess. They get in line. I'm supposed to take them to the bathroom. Oh, where is it? So Sister Julia Davis was in the group that was the first out, and she had been there on the job and finding out about things. So she told me where to take the kids to go to the bathroom. And that is the only thing that I remember from that week. Apparently I didn't do any harm. I don't know if I did much good or not. I really don't know what the principal might have been telling parents. Anyway, so the next week I went back to school, and I think I had a whole semester. And then one of the sisters in Cumberland got sick, and they sent the sister who was teaching the 6th grade in the model school to Cumberland to take her place. She came back to Louisville for medical care. And so now there was a hole in the model school, and I was elected to teach the 6th grade the 2nd semester of that year. I learned from from all the things you do in an English class. And I find that I really am good at writing and proofreading and that area. So I have done some proofreading for people who are writing books. And then when I taught in high school, I always had English classes. Sometimes I had other things too, just because of how the numbers of people and all that work. I think the first place I went was Pittsburgh. Mother Superior, the summer that I should have graduated from college, I was helping Sister Renilda in the community room, just keeping it clean. And anyway, Superior came up. She read to us during breakfast out of the rule on Fridays. And she came up after her breakfast on the back steps and through the community room up to her office. So here I am with Sister Renilda, and she comes up to me and she says, "Little sister," and I'm here and she's here. "Little sister, don't expect to stay in Louisville now that you've got your degree. And I said, "Oh, Mother, I haven't got my degree. I'm too short, and I was going to take those this summer." And she said, "Oh." So I thought that was the end of it. Then several weeks later, a couple of weeks later, she came up to me and did the same little thing. And I said, "No, Mother, I still have." And, so I thought, I said, "I'll probably be going out of town." And I did. She sent me to Pittsburgh because we had just been connected with the sisters who were there, and so we had an in, so to speak. Well, I get to enrollment with the other people, and they look at my thing and say, "But you haven't finished this yet." And I said, I don't remember what I said, but anyway, no. And that was the end of that. No, I was 2 years in Pittsburgh. And then they sent me to Cumberland, which was the most fun of all the places I've been. There were 2 Catholic schools taught by Ursulines, 2 parishes, up until the year that I went. And during that year, St. Mary's closed the school because they just didn't have enough people, or maybe the building wasn't up to sniff, because when they did the bettering of the building, it was only a grade school. But anyway, we had girls who would have gone to St. Mary's, who came to Ursuline, and there were 2 homerooms for freshmen, and my homeroom was downstairs. I don't know what the room was originally, but it was in the basement. It was okay. You could see the garden, the plants around the outside of the building from our windows. But I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed being there. That was the most fun, I think, of all the places I'd been. And the school was small enough. I taught 1 freshman class and 1 sophomore class. All girls, and I don't remember how many, not terribly many of them. Small school. Sister Bernice was the principal, and I was there 6 years, I think. I'd have to look at the calendars to be absolutely sure, but I think I was there for 6 years. And in the second year, I knew the names of all the girls. The second year I was there, I had, I taught history too. The second year I was there, they decided to do a different kind of mathematics that was not algebra, because there were some girls they didn't catch it. So that group, that was interesting. We had a nice book. I thought it did well by the girls, but it had, in the further back chapters, it had math that I had never had. I'd only had 2 years of algebra. I hadn't done anything higher than that because I was doing all the stuff that goes with teaching English, languages and stuff. We got through that other book, and I think they knew what they were doing by that time. And one of the best things about that book was every new thing that came up at the end of that little section was a whole page of word problems. And so their job was to write out the equation. Don't bother doing the whole thing, just get the equation. And that was very helpful for them. We did a couple of go outside and measure this and measure that things and see what the shadow does to this or that, which was all news to me. That was a good class. When I came back, I went to Angela Marissi, and I was there for 2 years. And the third year, I got a notice. I mean, my obedience said North Platte, Nebraska, and Sister somebody said, because I was really expecting to go back not for any particular reason, but I was expecting to go back to Angela Mercy. I was surprised by Nebraska. But the sister who was out there had heart problems, and her doctor was in Louisville, and they thought it would be safer all around if she came back, so we just traded places. And I was there for 2 years. The very first week, the most interesting thing happened. We had, they do a pig pit. They dig this big ditch. So interesting to watch what those men did, and then to see how, and you think, oh, they're going to put food in there. But of course they wrapped everything up. And then when it was all ready on the big deal, we had to come back and watch them undo everything too. Oh, there were lots of things about North Platte that were interesting. I learned how to drive in the snow, for one thing. We had a nice little house next to the church, I think it was, and a tree in the front yard where the things branched out. There was one little patch that we could see from the inside the house, because the sun didn't shine on it, of snow on the feast of St. Joseph, March the 19th. That was the last snow of the year, and it took it a long time to melt. But I thought, my goodness, where in the world do you see snow in the middle of March? I liked those kids. There was just a kind of down-to-earth sense, but it had a more adult feel to it than Morgantown had. From there, I went to Morgantown, and I was there the longest of any one place, which means it had to be 7 or 8 years compared to Cumberland, which was the second longest. And I came back on the 4th of July on a Greyhound bus, the year that Louisville was celebrating its, 200 years in the United States. Missed all the celebrations everywhere. Went to Holy Spirit and taught there, lived there, taught at Sacred Heart for 4 years. These are girls at Sacred Heart that I remember most because it was the most recent. They had an assignment, an essay. I had them write at least 6 during the 9 weeks of one section. And I corrected grammar and I corrected usage. When they got their papers back, it had a letter and a number, and the number was subtracted from 100 for how many mistakes I found in punctuation and spelling and appropriate and all that jazz, and A, B, or C, depending on the character of the writing itself. And then it went back out with this: if you do it over and get it correctly, it'll be 100, and maybe not an A. That would require a big change for some people, and I enjoyed that. And a couple of them later, a lot later, or not so lot later, came and thanked me because it helped them with whatever they came across after. And then Martha Buser came up with the Angela Prayer Center, and in '79, that was the year I was celebrating my 25th anniversary. And we had to move out of Holy Spirit because the convent was falling apart. Then during winter, I went down for breakfast one snow day, and nobody was going to school, so they slept in. I came down for breakfast, and I saw what looked shiny on the glass, so I put my hand over there, and it was ice. So there was something wrong with the window if ice was coming down on the dining room wall. So I told sister, whoever was in charge, and she called Father, and they came over and inspected. And before the school year was over, they had decided they were going to have to tear the building down because it was in such shape, which is not a surprise, as old as it was, a farmhouse, etc. So I went from living at Holy Spirit for 2 years, I think. I went over to Our Lady of Lourdes, and that's where I celebrated my Jubilee with the community. But with my family, it was at St. Vincent de Paul basement cafeteria because I moved to be, Martha wanted sisters in the Angela Prayer House who were not working Angela Prayer House. So I think there were 3 or 4 of us who were just doing our regular whatever it is. And that's when I was teaching Sacred Heart. I was there at the school for 4 years, and by the end of the 4th year, Martha said to me something about needing help with this or that. It was like desk work. And I said, well, I'd be glad to volunteer for that. So I was half-time at Sacred Heart, half-time at Angela. And that lasted for 4 years. And then Martha left to do the deacons, and that left me in charge of the prayer center, and I did not do the same kind of job that she did. I didn't have the same reputation, etc. So that lasted 3 or 4 years. And then the whole place, the whole of the Angela Prayer Center came out of a gift, a financial gift to Martha to do it with. And the money ran out after my 7th year, including the half days. And at that time, Sister Adelaide, I believe, was in charge of missioning where people go, find an open space, is there somebody to fit in it? And I got word from her that a parish was looking for a sister for the elderly. And I said to myself, I said to her, well, I'd be glad to try it. So the parish was Our Lady of Mount Carmel. You familiar with it? So I was in an entirely new territory, and I passed the inspection. And so I was there visiting the sick, the elderly, the housebound, funerals, and a mile away from the church was a nursing home, and the church was assigned to the Catholics there. And they had a priest who went there on Wednesday mornings and said Mass, and there were parishioners who went on Sunday to distribute communion. And I was to help the associate priest to go down there for that. So that lasted for, I'm not sure exactly how many years, when the priest was pulled somewhere else and another priest came in. When the last pastor that I knew was on the job, he was from the Sales to Mount Carmel. He was not in good health and cranky a lot. And I think that was partly due, if not totally, to all that burden hanging on him that what is he going to do? And I don't think he'd ever been a pastor in a parish of that size either. And so the bishop, the archdiocese tells him, get rid of your hired staff and get volunteers. Now, how that went, I don't know, but I was out 19 years. I was hoping to make it to 20, but I went down to the nursing home on a Wednesday, because it was the end of the month happened, and told so-and-so, the person who was in charge, and I can't remember now if it was a man or a woman, and said, I know someone's coming next week, but I do not know who that someone is, and you all will be taken care of. She said back to me, we've been bought by, and gave the name, and it's the Signature. Signature Healthcare has bought the business, and they want a chaplain in every facility. would you be interested? I said, I have not had all that training that a chaplain should have, but I'd be glad to give it a try. So this was in May. Father pastor said to me, this is your salary to June, take May off. So here's this information. Person at the nursing home said, so-and-so, and she was the president of whatever they called it, spirituality, I'll say that's not the word they used, but she's out of town, she will be here on this day to meet you. So I wrote it down in my calendar, and on that day I went out and met her, and we sat on the front porch of the building in a swing and talked for I don't know how long, and she said, I think we want you. So we went around, they put a date, and they wanted me part-time, because this was a brand new thing, they didn't know how it was going to work, and I visited the area, the South End area, and I can't remember the name of that area either. There was also one over on the way to Jeffersontown. One of the roads that you can take to get to Jeffersontown. That same company owned both of those buildings. Company owns those two buildings. And they were also other nursing homes in the area, and 5 altogether. 3 in Louisville, 1 in, and Taylorsville. I'd never been to Taylorsville before. And the other one was, that area. We visited all of them so I would know where they were and how to get there, and then, of course, any day of the week, and get that all settled. The one up the highway off 34 across from Madison, that one was the most countrified, so you had to go through a lot of empty space to get from the highway to the facility. And the first time I drove there by myself, I went past it. I got as far as the river, and I thought, whoops, turned around and went back. I think this was September by that time. And around the 3rd or 4th time when I was driving there myself, that I didn't have to pay as much attention as staying on the road, when I noticed this is just a little bit of ditch, a little bit of a side road here, and a ditch. And on the other side, it's the same. And I thought, okay, God, I am willing to do this, but not in the winter, so you better find somebody else. Now, I came down there. At that time, there was a group, we were called ourselves something about the spiritual ministers in the Louisville area, and we were meeting at a different place every month. It was a different audience every month because everybody couldn't come all the time. Some bodies came only once, and some came all the time. Anyway, we were meeting that time at hospice. I introduced myself and said where I was working, and I said, and by the way, they are looking for a chaplain who can give more time than I can, and if you're interested, just talk to me after lunch. So 2 guys came up, not at the same time, but they had the same first name, and I gave them the information, and the one of them must have acted faster than the other, or he had a more interesting thing. For the years that I worked for Signature, he went way up the ladder fast. So he was such a good person. I really enjoyed knowing him. And as time went on, it grew from 20 hours a month to and I was still part-time. And they asked me if I would be willing to come on full-time. Now, by this time, I had gained a few years. I was hoping to make it to 80, but I had an episode where I fainted for reasons nobody ever figured out, and fell. I was on the basement steps and threw some laundry in the machine, coming upstairs to have lunch. Sister Paula and I, she was upstairs in the kitchen getting her lunch, and I was coming up and I fainted and fell. There was a hold on to, but there was nothing this way, fell onto the floor, and ended up with scoliosis, which I didn't know that, for about 4 years or more. It was more like 8. And I began to wonder, nobody could tell me why I fainted. And I was afraid if something happened on the road to Taylorsville, that would not be a good thing. So prayer and worry and consulting and all that, I finally decided in 14 that I should retire. I moved out of the convent at St. Anne's, where I'd been living since we closed down St. Vincent de Paul. And that was in 99. I was in an apartment for 2 years, I think. And then with giving up the job, I didn't see any reason for holding on to a car. I didn't have a place to go. So I moved to the mother house, and I was there for 3 years when we moved here. I enjoy music, especially live music, especially orchestra music, not all the jazzy stuff. So the coffee concerts from the Louisville Orchestra are a real treat. And ballet, I love watching it, and have been trying to see the Nutcracker for sure, but some others that the Louisville Ballet Company puts on at the Kentucky Center. I volunteered for 30 years at the Kentucky Center, and during those Angela Marissi years when we didn't have any programs going on in the house, I could do the children day morning programs, and they were so much fun. The time they did Rumpelstiltskin, the leader, one of the men in the company was kneeling. They made pads for his knees, but they had false legs, of course, on the front, so he was a shrimpy-looking guy with a very important cape, a very special cape and a fancy hand thing. And the poor girl was sitting there at the machinery, turning the straws into gold threads. And it was at the very end of the program. The girl was doing her spinning, and he comes in and says to her, if you can tell me my name, I'll let you go. And so there's a lot of fussing around about the other characters. And finally, he pulls himself up as high as he can on his knees, and he says, and what is my name? And some kid in the audience yells out, Rumpelstiltskin. And he said, everybody knows my first name. What's my last name? And I thought to myself, when you're doing things for children, you'd have to be prepared. You do not know what's going to come out of your mouth. And for Hansel and Gretel, they had what was supposed to be grass and weeds and things. They were really paper on 3 sides, and then the witch's kitchen was there, and Hansel and Gretel. Hans was hiding in the grass, looking for the chance to sneak up there and get his sister out. And the girl looks out and says, "Oh, I don't know. That's so much. Where will I find him?" Some kid in the back, "He's right here." Really, really enjoyed those shows. Doing communion services, that was a brand new thing to me. And what else? Well, I collect stuff that can be used instead of being dumped in a landfill. So I have boxes of newspapers, and for things that you don't want in a landfill, like plastic and the stuff that have the little stars on them. Soft drink cans and cereal boxes, or all of those things. So I collect those, and we get them to one of the places that is not a garbage can. And what else? I'm looking for opportunities. Well, first of all, I'm having, I do some mending when people have that, the sewing machine. And sometimes sewing something new that's a gift or whatever. I have a niece who's getting married in April, and I want to make a bride hanky for her. And I want to make a bread wrap, or whatever, I don't know what to call it, but you put it in a bread basket for a wedding gift, which involves needlework, so I'm glad I know how to do that. I pray over those things and look for the best that I can do with it, that I can find out what to do and how to do, and so forth. I don't know what else to say about it. I'm not sure exactly how to answer that. I don't know that I've examined my interior, although I have done that sometimes. I just finished a retreat, a private retreat, because I needed a time and space that things could settle down, and I took the two Martha Buser's books on Angela, and that was the brick from which I pulled the pieces for the retreat, and that was so inspiring. That's not exactly the word I want. I feel like I know her so much better than before, and I try to keep her in mind. She's a woman that's, if I need her, she's there. I can depend on what she can help me do, and I guess she's probably saved me from a few big, not huge, but big opportunities to make a mess of something. Just that I hope that, that so long as I live, I'm healthy enough in the brain, if not in the body, to be helpful, useful, to be a contributor to the congregation as it shrinks. My number was 858. So there had been 858 women before me, and whenever they started keeping numbers. Now I don't know when that started either. When early on, after we were professed, Sister Donata called this to my attention. There were so many sisters who came back to the Mother House in the summer. Some of them were still working on their degrees. Some of them were coming because something was going on and they were expert in that, or they had to become. And there were some 400 on the grounds. Lots of empty spaces were turned into sleeping spots during the summer, especially the classrooms in the one building. I think they were actually walls, but they didn't go all the way up. And you'd have to climb on something to look over to whoever was next door to you. And it was hilarious when we had bats. I mean, that's not all that funny, but it was funny when somebody's running up or down the hall with a broom or a mop trying to catch the thing. And I remember one time when, and I don't remember who it was, one of the sisters caught it, and so they raised the window from the wall and threw the whole mop down outside and then pull the thing down. But I've learned since how bats get into buildings. It's the way the building is made. And I remember one night while we were still living here, there was one flying around in the basement, the mother house, and Carol was over, you know, the way that library area was. All right, Carol was over there, her back to the walking space, reading something, and this bat was going. I don't know if she knew it was there.